My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the CT Sports Talent Show. And, it's always great to be able to catch up with a coach who I've had on many, many times, although it's been a while since I've had him on here, the head coach of the Simsbury football program, Coach Dave Masters. Coach, thanks for coming on. And as always, welcome back.
You bet. Like I said before, it feels like forever, but I always like doing this, getting touching base and catching up.
It's always fun being able to talk about the program and obviously try to catch up kind of with what happened, in terms of last season. And I know last season, as with any season, there were some ups, there were some downs, there was a lot of growing pains and such. If you can, as far as just kind of give a quick recap of what happened last season for Simsbury.
Well, the funny thing is we started off with North Haven, and we didn't know anything about them except for we knew they ran something that we didn't normally see. So we tried to make a lot of adjust. We spent a lot of time on that focus. Scrimmage some guys that ran a similar offense. We went up to Torrington and scrimmaged them, and then we went to North Haven, and man, that was an impressive team. Physically and like the speed of it. We weren't ready for it. I didn't do a good enough job preparing, and I thought I had, but we clearly weren't ready for that game. And that kicked us back a little bit, and then I think we recovered at the beginning part of the season. We got a couple wins, started to feel good. Went into the halfway mark into the bye feeling pretty confident with the rest of our schedule, and then really our quarterback that we had playing got hurt, which led us to the discovery of our sophomore quarterback, which you never want to see that happen, but that's the way you get to look at a young kid, sometimes. And he was pretty good, but it did, threw a couple curveballs at the team, and we didn't execute down the road. So, we did not reach our potential, and we didn't execute well enough. And I didn't, I got to find a better way to accommodate for all that stuff. So, we ended not exactly how we wanted to, but the good news is, we got a lot of kids in the program. I think we're up to like 150 now, through the off season. Our roster is big, and there's some good talent in the roster, and there's some good depth in the roster. So, and the quarterback is coming back with, a 4-game experience. So, that's always a plus too. So, there is the ups and downs for sure. But, we took away with the positive stuff we could, and then we kind of rehashed where we made mistakes as coaches, and really tried to focus on, how to make those better. So, we're in a spot. We worked harder this off season, which seems crazy, but worked harder this off season than we have in, a long time. And, I thought we worked hard before, but we spent a lot of time, and everyone got on board with it, all of them. So it was pretty good in terms of where we're at now.
You almost feel like coach in some ways because of what happened last season with the players that are returning, as you said, over 150 kids. And that's awesome to hear. The numbers are good. It's always good to hear that the program numbers are high in football, especially when over the course of the last 10, 15 years, there's a decline as far as football players at the high school level for various reasons. But back to my main question, with what happened last year, do you feel like both yourself and, or more so, the staff and the players are kind of taking what happened last year right to heart and making sure that that doesn't happen again? And there's more.
Yeah, I mean that's been a center of our focus. We've swung around a little bit. We've worked on our mindset stuff. We didn't feel like our approach to the season was. I don't know if it was because we became comfortable to some degree, or what it was, but we just didn't have the same kind of energy that we normally have. And I think that's been recognized. It was recognized by the coaches, and it was recognized by the players. I took the first part from December to, I think we ended in the beginning of April, and I met with every single kid for 20 minutes minimum. And I had good, bad, pros, cons, what's your goal? Like it was an intense conversation by design, and it was designed to find out where we have holes in the program. And, when I first started in 2015, we had a terrible year, but I ended that year, I felt like we grew. I remember having conversations with assistant coaches and saying, I feel like we're in a good spot. Like we were able to recognize where we made mistakes and where we lacked, and then we were able to kick it up a notch and kind of take off. I kind of feel, we did a pretty good job of reflection and trying to work on towards getting where we want to be, where we expect to be, quite frankly. I don't know, there's no excuse for us not to be competitive in every single game. And, I don't know, wins and losses, that's not something I really deal in my brain with. But I do want us to be competitive in every game. I want us to bring our A game every game. I want us to be prepared every game. And I don't feel like we were that last year. And so our mission this year has been to make sure that happens from the start. So hopefully, we start with Fairfield Ludlow and we can, be competitive in that game and get the wheels back on the bus going the right direction.
Do you feel like, Coach, with now camp underway? I know you guys just had a camp last week. What have you seen, if as far as what you can share? Is there anything different from the camp that you saw last week that maybe compares to better than what you saw last year at the
Well,
same?
the camp last week was just our youth camp. That
Okay.
was that was us coaching our youth guys. We won't have, but we have been in passing league. We did something in the spring, and then we just did a tournament in West Point. And the kids recognized it too. Like the energy was just better. So I'll use that as an example because that's my only gauge right now. But just going to compete against, when we go to West Point, we compete, and it's 7-on-7, so it is what it is. But still, you want to have your kids compete at a high level and be focused on it. And it was different. It was different on the sidelines. It was different on the, being ready for it. They handled the nerves better. They competed with. We play some pretty good schools down at West Point, and the environment's different. But they did a really good job, and they did a good job on the field, and they did a good job, in being ready to go. So that was night and day from last year. So that was good.
Was there any feedback that you got from the players as far as that experience? Because it had to be something that they loved.
Yeah, well, they love that thing, and I don't have any shortage of guys that want to go to it. I try not to take them a big crew. I try to, the older kids want to go to that, and I try to here, and we make an event out of it as we, I have a tendency to do. We get up super early, we travel down, we eat, we get, it's a whole big process. But the feedback from them that was most impactful to the program was, they recognized the difference between last year and there because there's a lot of those same kids that went. And that was really kind of what I was looking for. And so I saw some young leaders and guys that want to be captain, rise up. That was a productive thing. And that's really why I do it. I mean, it's 7-on-7 football. It's not by any stretch, but are we doing the right things? Are we in the right place? Are we, comparatively where we should be? Do I feel like we are? And I felt like we were. It was good. It was exciting. I think the biggest indicator of some change is the weight room energy. I hired a new strength coach, and he's running it, 4 days a week, 2 hours, and it's intense and it's great. He's doing a really good job of that. And we got, I don't know, there's well over 100 kids participating in that consistently. So it's been good. That energy is good too. So these are the kind of indicators that I look for. Like, am I calling guys to wake them up to get to the lift, or are they just coming? Is it intrinsic motivation, or are they motivated by the bald guy yelling at, you know what I mean? So it really makes a difference on, to me, how people approach the season. And I over my course of my time as a coach, going on whatever 30 years or whatever, I, that's the indicators to me. Like, how are kids coming? Are they ready to do it, or am I doing it for them? Are the coaches, their unit leaders on their butts about it? So I think that's where we're seeing some positive differences.
Coach, I've always believed that you can't lose games in the offseason, or not win games in the offseason, but you can lose them because of the fact of not being able to, like you mentioned, the weight room is so important as far as just the strength part, film work, being able to meet with coaches, when liable, when able to, and just kind of work on things. And it just sounds like, there's something different, right? You spoke about last
Yeah.
year, various things.
Yeah.
It sounds different right now.
Well, when I drive into the office in the morning and there's guys already on the track doing stuff with their friends, or if I'm leaving the office or I drive by the high school and there's guys on the turf that are throwing, or they have we have the ability to they have the ability to come in and work, and you see them doing extra work and all the right guys doing that stuff.
Mhm.
Those are indicators, as I said before. So those are the things that I'm seeing and that I'm hopeful for. And I think that the best thing that the younger kids see the same thing I do when they come in. They see the older kids out there working, and I see freshmen coming in and doing it. So those are things that I'm positive, that make me have a pretty positive feeling about that, you know going
No,
into
that's
next year.
That's awesome to hear, though. I mean, again, like you said, being able to
Yeah.
see the other kids come in and being able to work is massively important. I mean, as we know, the season before we know it is going to just happen just like that. I mean, I think I saw a tweet we're what, 80 something days, 85 days away from the first game, something like that.
I don't know. I can't. I'm focused on because we're going away to camp for the first time in a while because I found the right spot. So, August 14th is going to be here before you know it. I mean, we're not much farther than a month away at this point. So, you
Mhm.
know, or yeah, right. Yeah. So it's really super close. So, we're trying, like, I really tried to focus on day to day, what can we do better today? And really right now, the focus is on lift. We'll go see Farazi next week, not next week, but on the 3rd, we start there. We
Mhm.
didn't go. They started the summer league, but we couldn't go the first night because of camp. So we're excited to do that. We've done that for a number of years, and that's an event too. Road trip, kids going out to eat after. That's always fun.
Mhm.
And so we'll focus on the things that we can focus on. But they're pretty excited. I feel like they're pretty excited. The numbers are certainly encouraging for sure, particularly the freshmen. I held a freshman meeting. There were like, I think there was 58 on paper there, and there were a bunch that weren't there. So that's a good number of freshmen, which is encouraging because we haven't had that big a number in a long time. So
And I think
that's
a
helpful.
lot of that has to go, coach, with the fact of what you've done with the program. As you mentioned to me, 30 years kind of just flew by just like that. And I mean, you and I were talking about kind of just the fact of what you've done with the program for so long. I mean, has it hit you that you've been there for 30 years?
Well, I mean, here I actually was here for this is my 21st year here, and
Okay.
then I was at Hall for the time before that. But
Mhm.
it does go by fast. I mean, even as I stopped this year teaching, I was like, wow, the time really flies. It really, you think it's never going to get there, but then all of a sudden, bam, you're there. And I look at it as a privilege, to be honest with you. I feel lucky to have been able to do it for so long. I think it's not. I don't think it's I've just the longevity of it, I've just outlasted. You know what I mean? Just keep plugging away. But it's been fun for sure. No, I don't can't I can I don't recall a lot of bad experiences, and I really do have just numerous
Mhm.
great experiences and great people, as we talked about before. The crew that you were hanging out this weekend, those are all good guys.
Mhm.
And I really have always appreciated the football I've been lucky enough to be around for them for that time.
Coach, I heard a now retired coach a couple years ago tell me once, when I wake up and I don't love the fact of coaching anymore, and I don't have that fire to want to push the kids and basically everything that coaches do every single day when they're able to. When that coach lost that, he said, you know what? Then I'm done. I'm not just going to stay just to stay. And it seems like to me,
No, yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like to me, coach, you still have that fire. You wake up every day at whatever time you wake up and you're like, I've got a job to do.
Yeah, I do. I do. That is true. Yeah, yeah,
You know,
that's very true. I still do enjoy it a lot. And, I feel like I'll be able to recognize when I don't, and when that time comes, then it'll be time. But um, really, that's definitely one of my favorite things to do is come here and work. And it's changed, my temperament has changed. What I feel is important has changed. There's a lot that's changed over that time, but still, it's always the players that, and I love the challenge of getting from a player from A to B, and how they develop, and they develop all different ways. It's when you first start coaching, you think it's a cookie cutter and everyone needs to be the same, but then you evolve. I think that's the greatest gift of being able to outlast and stick around, the learning that you do on how to approach different things, and really get better at that, just by actually being more open than I was when I was younger. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel lucky to have that kind of you know um, realization of how things are supposed to happen now.
Coach, you mentioned the temperament that you had, right? As far as kind of how things have gotten, because I didn't know you when you first started coaching. I've known you the last couple of years, and it's been a pleasure to be able to
Yeah.
speak with you
You
about
should go back and ask some of my guys you should go ask some of my guys that I coached at offensive line. Tell you they you can they can talk about my temperament. I don't know. You learn from how you I first started and I learned from how I was coached, and I was coached in the 80s in a farming community with a good history of success with some rather tough individuals. So, you learn a certain way and then you figure out that it doesn't have to always be that way. So, no, it's funny, but all my line guys are coming back. So I must have, not scared them away too much. Actually, the guy that's taken over our line this year was a kid that ended up playing at Union for me. He was one of the best linemen I ever coached, like a 3-time all conference kid, and he's just great. So I like it when linemen come back that I've had that coach line, because there's a certain, way I like the offensive line to be run, and those guys do a good job of doing that. I had that. I mean, I don't know if you ever met him before, but he was with me for a while. He did a great job, and so those guys, I like to have those former linemen come back and run that stuff for me. So I didn't scare them away too much, I guess.
It's always good when you have the Hogs because you need them. They play the most important position. I mean, I've always said the offensive line, other than pancakes and giving up sacks, there's really no other stat that gets recorded. And they deserve a lot of credit because they are literally the reason why teams win or lose games. Just look at the Chiefs, for example.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't think you would find anybody in the football world that would disagree with that. And they're the most, and they deserve a lot of, like, we try and focus on the other things that make them feel important, because then it never, they don't get talked about on the podcast and necessarily, and they don't get, there's nothing on the news about them, you know what I mean? But, they're the most fun to coach. They're the hardest working guys. So, I always, found it important to not only acknowledge how important they are, but do things that are special for them. They have their own space in locker rooms. They get a lot of perks and bonuses outside of stuff, that maybe the normal, skill player might not get. He's not lined up in a row with all his other, like, we just try and take care of them outside of that, because they really are that important for us, for
And
anybody.
I've always thought too, coach, especially because of them playing O-line, they're either big, they're tall, or they're both. And you want them to like you because if they like you, they'll help you if you have problems, right? I would
Yeah,
think.
make them your friend.
Exactly. But hey,
You want the big guy your friend.
always, always. But coach, I appreciate you coming on the podcast as always, being
You
able to
bet.
talk about some Simsbury football and such. Hopefully I can get you back on again before the season starts, after camps and such, so we can do
Yeah,
a
anytime.
preview with the program.
Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Always. I'll wrap things up here in the CT Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Our CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Rich, and find them all. Enjoy the show, everybody, and be well.